there's any show on Nickelodeon that I would consider underrated both by fans and the network itself, it would have to be 2008's Making Fiends. Based on creator Amy Winfrey's own web cartoon, it's about the inhabitants of Detroit, Clamburg, specifically the rivalry between the tyrannical girl Vendetta, who wants nothing more than domination over her town, and a severely airheaded Charlotte who's too dumb to recognize the danger she brings to everyone before she inadvertently thwarts her schemes. Ever since I joined Making Fiends YTP collab back in the day, I've been rather fond of it. I've watched episodes over and over to the point of making my own fanfictions about it over on my DeviantArt account, but I've never really given it the recognition on my main platform until now. Granted, the story about its initial conception, purchase by Nickelodeon, and severe mistreatment has already been widely documented on YouTube, so it's kinda pointless to talk about it here. Instead, I'm gonna be going deep into the show itself by talking about the good and the bad by ranking all 18 episodes made by Nickelodeon, plus a little bonus segment in the middle about the original web show. Let's just get right into it.
Daddy, I want another pony.
Unlike a lot of Nicktoons, this worst episode isn't anywhere near as irredeemable as a lot of Loud House episodes or SpongeBob episodes from season 6 through 9. But Pony still kinda bothers me, not just because of what's in the episode, but because it's the episode they decided to go out on. I mean, I know Charlotte's supposed to be stupid, but here she's just inconsiderate of her friend's safety as she's riding the giant horse Vendetta reluctantly made her, to the point where they had to rely on Vendetta to take her down. Then she can't sing a country song to save her life. Like I said, it's not terrible, it's got some fun gags here and there, including the way Vendetta gets rid of the giant horse. So this is the worst this show had to offer? I suppose there's a better average of episode quality than most Nickelodeon shows.
Yes, I Canada!
Continuing the trend of inoffensive but somewhat bothersome episodes, we have New Best Friend. Vendetta's initial plan to infest Charlotte's house with termites goes south when they end up destroying her house, so she has to move to Marion's house until further notice. Marion is initially reluctant to let her enemy into her life, but she slowly starts to sympathize with her and join her on the quest to destroy Charlotte. And by slowly, I mean rather quickly. One minute she's like, oh, I hate Clamburg so much that I'm gonna pull an Andy Dufresne and slowly dig my channel across the border. And as soon as she knows, she's like, you know what, I hate Charlotte just as much as Vendetta does. Let's destroy her together. I mean, I know we had that montage signifying that time has passed, but in episode time it's just so hasty. Maybe make room for Marion's character development by cutting out the Canada subplot entirely, and thus cut Charlotte's annoying running gag of, oh, I bet you could use this too to go all the way to Canada. Seriously, Charlotte, I was already unnerved in the last video with Brain 5's 12th level intellect gag. I don't need another annoying gag. Although it does have a funny ending where right when Marion's done making this new fiend to destroy Charlotte, Vendetta Charlotte gets this phone call saying her house is termite free, so she just ups and leaves so like they were never friends to begin with. I do wish we got to see a little more of this fiend though. Like as they sneak in behind Charlotte and the fiend's about to kill her, then Vendetta does a call that this house is clean. I don't know, I just think this episode could have been way better.
You have no power because you have no hair.
I give Toupee credit for putting the spotlight on one of the side characters, as Vendetta makes the shy and timid Mr. Milk this talking wig that gets him to be more social about his co-workers, and offers to further help him if he murders Charlotte once and for all. While the story itself isn't inherently bad, it's ruined by a sense of pacing. I know we only have so much time to fit syndication, but we don't get a sense of introduction between Milk and the wig. One minute he realizes the wig's possessed, and the next second the wig's socializing with other people, including the woman he likes. Then the montage of the wig trying to get him to kill Charlotte, well, kinda hasty. Plus you'd think after Milk finally gets rid of the wig he'd learn his lesson to be more social, but he just goes back to being shy and timid around everyone. So what was the point of this episode really? Top it up with a pretty average Swiss musical number, and it got an equally average episode.
You're all shrinking!
You're growing!
Shrinking Charlotte is the first episode on this list where it's actually based on a pre-existing webisode, where Charlotte and Vendetta's class get into shenanigans related to the shrinking shrug and growing squids. And honestly, it didn't do that webisode enough justice. You would think that giving it double the runtime would actually improve on it, but it doesn't really do enough to justify the longer runtime. In fact, a lot of the borrowed jokes are either ruined by the slower pace or not nearly as funny. However, what almost saves this episode is the climax, which keeps the chaotic nature of the webisode's climax and in some respects improves on it. I do like the added song in here. So not a bad episode on its own, just one that pales in comparison to the source material.
Stop singing or you're fired!
If there's one episode that isn't nearly as rewatchable as some of the other ones, it would have to be no singing. Vendetta gets tired of Charlotte's constant singing, so she makes a fiend that smashes anyone or anything that bursts into song. But coincidentally, Maggie reads this depressing poem about a lost kitten to the class, which gets Charlotte in the dumps. So the rest of the episode is just Vendetta trying to cheer Charlotte up so that she'll sing and get smashed. So the conflicting tones between the happy first half and the depressing second half isn't terribly executed, but really the first half I found pretty hard to sit through, as I found it kind of one note with it mostly just Vendetta being annoyed by Charlotte's singing. Ironically, is when Charlotte's down when this episode really picks up, as Vendetta is spectacularly failing to lift her spirits up, as all she knows how to do is make people miserable. Leans to some dark hilarity all the way to its conclusion. So while this has its moments, said moments are mostly in the second half, leading to an episode I wouldn't really look back on compared to the other ones.
Ogres are like onions.
There's a couple episodes in this lineup that are actually not just one story, but multiple segments in one. And to me, one is clearly more consistent in quality than the other. In terms of the first set of shorts, I really enjoyed the segment involving this Rossmann style of Charlotte and Vendetta's conflicting reports of a particular day of Charlotte coming into Vendetta's house. Charlotte remembers them having lots of fun together, while Vendetta saw it as Charlotte constantly tormenting her. So like the Luke and Kylo thing in Last Jedi, only the internet doesn't go crazy over it. And the segment about Charlotte singing about Clanberg is cute enough. But the segment involving advertising the onion stand I found alright. And while Vendetta sabotaging Clanberg's tourism ad is kinda funny, it begs the question as to why even bother trying to get people to visit a town that's run down and infested by Vendetta's dictatorship and murderous fiends. That's like trying to make a tourism video of North Korea. So next time you make a segmented episode like this, just try to make the segments more consistent so that I'd actually watch the full thing more than individual ones, okay? Spoilers for later in this video, I guess.
Beware running with scissors.
Athena's Friend is another episode based off a previous webisode, or at least the second half is. The first half is just Charlotte wanting to pretend with Vendetta, and Vendetta trying to avoid her. Weirdly, this first bit has nothing to do with the title, which is undoubtedly the best part. With Charlotte's catchy song about pretending and finding a loophole and Vendetta wanting her to pretend to be dead, only to pretend that she's a ghost, that's just hilarious. However, when we actually get to the Fiend is Friend stuff where Vendetta sends Charlotte this Scissorlegs Fiend, which she adopts as her own puppy, while it is fun to see the Fiend go around and cause chaos and even delight the laws of physics in cartoonish fashion, it only compares in comparison to that first half, especially when it mostly goes through the motions of the original episode. Overall, I'm still gonna go back to this episode many times in my life, even if the best parts have nothing to do with the Fiend is Friend it's named after.
And the rest of you must be there.
Parent Nap sees Vendetta getting jealous of her shrunken parent hanging out with Charlotte more than her, so she sends one of her fiends to retrieve them, only for her to kidnap Charlotte's grandma, Charlene, instead, so they're stuck with each other's parent for a while. It's rather fun to see both protagonists interact with the other's parents, but Charlotte inadvertently mishandling them with her poorly made mini amusement park and sets, and with Charlene's extra endearment constantly getting on Vendetta's nerves. And it has one of the funniest scenes of the whole show when Vendetta's baking a fiend, but Charlene thinks she's making a cake, so she dumps all this sugar into the bowl, causing this fiend to go into a massive sugar rush. Plus it has a fair show of world bending, as we found out that Charlene wants this car and auto parts shop for a living, which honestly makes a lot more sense if you think about it. My only nitpick is, while I understand why Charlotte kept Vendetta's parents around as she misunderstood Vendetta's letter to want to trade them, why does Vendetta just keep Charlene around if she hates her so much? Oh well, whatever gets Vendetta into that sweater, I guess.
Parents.
Yeah. Moms and dads.
In the episode Parents, we see the students and their parents gather for parent-teacher night, except for Charlotte, who lost her parents at a very young age before her grandma took her in. Oh, I mean her parents are totally astronauts who went up into space and are totally coming back. No offense, Charlotte, but you're a filthy little liar. So Vendetta uses this as an opportunity to make Fiends disguise as her parents, only for them to form a bond when Charlotte doesn't recognize them. The whole episode is this weird mix of sweet and funny, as we see the Fiends slowly become more empathetic towards Charlotte, to the point of temporarily raising her as their own, until they're unceremoniously eaten by a whale, while Charlotte's none the wiser. It's one of the quintessential episodes of this movie's dark humor, even if it's not one of my very favorites. But seriously, Charlotte, you better hope Vendetta doesn't use your blatant lie against you. Alright, we're halfway through the video, so let's take a little intermission to briefly rank the webisodes. But since there's not really much to work with each individual one, I'm gonna steal with Sean Chandler and talk about each one in 2 words or less. Thanksgiving, pointless. Concrete shoes, kind of misspirited. Baking beans, one joke. No more Charlotte, Taya lied. Mrs. Minty, little duckling. Rubella, poor hamster. The end of all things, flawed conclusion. New student, flawed introduction. Wintry day, Charlotte's dumb. Rainy day schedule, my sanity. Show and tell.
Monkey!
Feeding pests, truthful title. Charlotte's birthday, strawberry clam. Vegetables, Burton's Veggie Tales. Election, vote Pedro. Kitty, 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 pretty red. Valentine's Day, big heart. Schizophene, fetish define. Making friends, cheerful villain. April Fools, Bulgarian fools. Halloween, sugar cookie. Shrinking shrug, size shenanigans. Invisible, funniest death. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I see a house, and it's flying through the sky.
Alphaba, what the f are you talking about?
In the episode Tornado, Vendetta creates a twister to hopefully send Charlotte and her house away, but instead ends up falling right next to Vendetta's own house, causing an annoyance with Charlotte to run 24/7 now that they're neighbors. It's rather fun seeing Vendetta try to find all sorts of ways to try to evade her, only for Charlotte to find ways around them, culminating in this rather trippy dream sequence centered around Charlotte. Admittedly, I didn't find the subplot of the giant hamster being sent far away and having to trudge back quite as interesting, but it's worth it just to see him put Charlotte's house back into place right when Charlotte returns from shopping. Also, if the sight of Charlotte using Vendetta's leaf blower causing chaos in the kitchen isn't the funniest thing ever, just wait until my number 1.
That's Mama Luigi to you, Mario!
While Vendetta sees her erect this giant statue of herself, only for Charlotte to continuously vandalize it, so she decides to have some bomb fiends to guard it. Only problem is, the fiends just so happen to be baby pigeons who, upon hatching, confuse Vendetta as the mother, so Charlotte wants to help raise them much to Vendetta's chagrin. Much like the Parents episode, this premise manages to be darkly sweet and funny at the same time, especially knowing they're basically raising live grenades that could explode any moment. Only enough to the finale where they're flying towards Vendetta in the big V, which is obviously a nod to the famous award-winning 2006 film Little Man, and destroys a statue that she's been spent the whole episode obsessing over, having it come full circle.
And to be a manager, you have to be a man.
Vendetta wants to take a vacation from her school life, so she makes Marvin the middle manager. Well, that's why they call it that. Turns out Marvin's pretty terrible at handling for fiends, so Charlotte steps in to help him become more successful than ever. It's really fun seeing them interact with Vendetta's fiends in a lot of creative ways, and it gives Marvin the opportunity to have more of a character, much like Mr. American Toupee in Marrying a New Best Friend, except here I think is the best example of this. And his chemistry with Charlotte was rather sweet. No wonder a lot of fans of the show tend to ship these two, myself included. In fact, they become so successful together that they come close to succeeding in Vendetta's order to destroy Charlotte through this Rube Goldberg machine, but this time it's Vendetta who ends up screwing things this time around. So overall, this serves as one of the better examples of this show's world building and plain shipping fuel.
They're just so cheesy.
Previously on this stupid video. So next time you make a segmented episode like this, just try to make the segments more consistent so that I actually watch the full thing more than individual ones, okay? Well, you know, the next batch of shorts are actually just as consistently entertaining as ever. The first segment is a pretty fun parody of Pet Shorts commercials, but with giant man-eating feed animals. The next one is about Charlotte dreaming about a land of cheese which she visits along with Vendetta, only for Vendetta to realize she's supposed to hate Charlotte and fun, so she sends this dragon fiend to burn and melt everything before Charlotte tames it to make grilled cheese sandwiches. That's pretty funny. But not as funny is the last segment where they both sing about Charlotte going to the moon, predictably Charlotte gushing about the upsides and Vendetta line for the downsides to happen to Charlotte. See, making fiends, you can make a great batch of shorts when you put equal amount of effort into all of your content.
Settle it in Smash!
So remember that movie Together last year where Jason Franco's brother and his wife Keek literally getting stuck together in this weird body horror mashup? Well, apparently they wrapped up the episode Smash, where Vendetta makes this simple fiend that inadvertently smashes the two together. Much like Tornado, their distinct personalities work the best when they're as together as possible. Charlotte's just as happy and cheerful as ever, and Vendetta's just as depressed as ever, to the point of attempting suicide in a kids show. See, one course meal, that's how you do it. And the way they try to work around being conjoined leads to a lot of funny gags, especially later when they get conjoined with a giant hamster. And it almost makes me wish there was a pancake festival in real life. Almost.
Plankton. 1% evil, 99% hot gas.
Super Evil has Vendetta take a magazine quiz of how evil she is, only for Charlotte to take the same quiz and seemingly ranks higher than her, thus causing her to contemplate the question, how deep can evil truly go, and can it truly hide deep into a seemingly nice person? Watching her from afar smelling flowers and paying squirrels seems innocent enough, but when she actually puts it to practice when she offers Charlotte's cookies to the town, everyone is even more afraid of her since she's so terrible at it. But perhaps the funny scene in the episode comes at the end where Vendetta lets Charlotte make a fiend of her own, only for it to become Mr. Huggles. And it turns out Charlotte wasn't secretly evil at all, she just made a pretty picture by filling on all these bubbles. Just goes to show that these types of quizzes aren't that trustworthy after all. Take off her glove and boots.
Welcome to Hogwarts, Muff Muncher _69.
These next two episodes I flip back and forth as to what to put before and after. Because both episodes are based on pre-existing webisodes and managed to be the best examples of them. Ultimately, I decided Charlotte's birthday would be mentioned first, which itself combines the first two episodes into one without feeling awkwardly paced. It does a fantastic job introducing us to the world of Glamberg and the conflicting characters of Charlotte and Vendetta, which prove to be perfect foils of each other. The higher budget clearly shows in the improved animation and shell design, especially in the third act with the giant cat causing chaos around the playground. It's a really good introduction of the fantastic series that's to come, and go just as quickly.
I said I don't want any damn vegetables.
Yeah, you pretty much guessed vegetables would be next from the last segment. I just prefer this one in terms of remaking what was old because instead of just mashing two episodes into one, here it expands on one as after Charlotte protests against serving the same lunch over and over and not including vegetables in the diet, even though onions just should technically count, instead of just seeing Vendetta make veggie fiends, here we see multiple attempts by Charlotte to get Vendetta to like vegetables, even to the point of hiding carrots in Vendetta's casserole. And like I said, it maintains the same climax of Charlotte taming the veggie fiends and having them perform this pretty funny yet catchy musical number. When I called this Tim Burton's version of VeggieTales, I wasn't kidding. You can see why this was my choice to use for my YGP entry. But in terms of the episodes themselves, there's still one more.
There's 7 of us and 8, 9...
did you count that one?
I think so.
Folks, this was one of the hardest rankings I had to list. There were just so many episodes that ranged in quality between inoffensive but bothersome to solid to even great that I had to keep rearranging and rewatching just to make sure I have a proper list. But after watching this one particular episode, I knew that Puppies, Puppies, Puppies just couldn't be topped. This is just a perfect Making Fiends episode. Perfect storytelling, perfect pace, a perfect sense of humor. Much like one of the best My Little Pony episodes to make Pinkie Pies, this episode says, hey, you know what's even funnier than one Charlotte? How about 200,000 Charlottes with a million more well on the way? Okay, maybe not that many, but still. Vendetta gets the idea to clone a guard dog to attach Charlotte all around, but when Charlotte ends up taming them, she decides to clone herself to properly take care of these dogs and to an extent hunt Vendetta at every turn, leading up to them putting on this whole circus act much to Vendetta's hilarious horror. I could seriously watch this scene for hours. This episode has everything a Making Fiends episode should have. A great premise it takes advantage of to great effect, great music, hilarious moments, and Vendetta having even less of a break on onion stick than the fat guy in Lilo and Stitch with his ice cream. And that's what makes Puppies, Puppies, Puppies the best Making Fiends episode of all time. At least until Nickelodeon stops using it as an IP to sit on and do nothing with.